Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is SewRena, and in today's video we're going to be making a 1955 sewing pattern, more specifically a jerkin and a skirt set. I am so excited to share this project with you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. My little channel has grown so much since the last video, and we are officially over 100,000 subscribers. And I want to thank you guys so much. It really means the world to me. I feel like my YouTube shorts really took off, and so I'm hoping that some of that traction can lead to my full-length videos. But nevertheless, I do appreciate you guys who have been here from the very beginning. It means the world to me. So I do not have footage of the fabric because I jumped right into the project and I didn't have any ounce of scrap left to even show you that. So we are working with a cotton suiting that I got from Joann's Fabric. It is a red fabric. I got my pattern from Backroom Finds, Stephanie Canada's pattern shop, and I'll leave the information to her shop in the description below just in case you guys are interested. I want to thank you guys so much. If you want to follow me in real time, follow me on Instagram at @SewRena_. You can also leave me a virtual tip on Ko-fi. The link will be in the description below. That will really help out with my channel, but also equally as important is liking and leaving a comment below, and that also helps so much. So let's get into the pattern. So for today's pattern, we're going to be working on this like jerkin style suit. It's a jerkin, a blouse, and a skirt pattern. I feel like this falls in the suit pattern category, more like a soft suit because there is no like fancy hair canvas or canvas forming the shape. So I am using a more sturdy suiting fabric to make this garment. As you can see, the pattern number is not on the envelope, so I'm going to look it up and add it into the video. It is a simplicity pattern. It's a size 11, bust 29, and here's the back. It was released in 1955, or at least copywritten in 1955. And the description says, blouse features a small collar and a large bow at center front neck edge. Elbow length sleeves are pleated and gathered to cuffs fastened with link buttons. So it's like a French cuff. Slim skirt has a walking pleat in the back, princess line jerkin, and styled with a higher cut square neck, flat pocket accent, hip line. 6-button trim is optional, and I did do the 6-button trim option. I did not get an opportunity to make the blouse yet, but I do intend to make the blouse because I adore French cuffs. And here is the fabric requirements and the standard body measurements. So let's get into sewing because I do not have any bits of the fabric left to show it to you ahead of time. So we are jumping right in here with this. I am marking the darts on the front, and I'm using a tailor's chalk for this. A couple videos ago, people asked what I was marking with, and right now I'm using tailor's chalk because I've run out of my invisible ink pen. And those are really great, but sometimes they don't show up very well on darker fabrics, so having some chalk on hand is always great. And now I am marking the center front button placement with some tailor's tack, and I'm using a white thread because the chalk does sometimes rub off, and I wanted to make sure my buttons were nice and even. Originally, I bought this fabric to make a circle skirt. It was an online pickup order, so I'd never seen the fabric until I got it at my house. And as soon as I saw the nice quality of the fabric and the weight, I quickly switched it up and wanted to do something more suit-like because it is a very wonderful fabric. The weight is really good, and it has a small polyester content to it, so that way it doesn't wrinkle, but it is majority cotton, and you can really feel that. One of the more striking things about this pattern are the pockets. They are located lower at the hip, and they slant with the cute little flap. I don't usually go for drop-waisted patterns because I don't have wide hips at all, and I feel like they definitely showcase that new look feel, but I felt like the pockets were really cute and they did add dimension at the hip, so it was worth trying. So now I am marking the pocket placement on the side front panel. I completely forgot about this and I didn't even notice the stitching line was put on there. So I am putting little notch type markings within the seam allowance so I can line it up with the pocket and you won't be able to see the chalk once I am done sewing it on. Here you can see me lining up the pocket with the markings, and I did draw the stitching line on the pocket so that way I can top stitch that down on the sewing machine without having any trouble. And I did have to ease the pocket in just a little. In an ideal world, you'd be using the bigger side that needs easing to be against the feed dogs because the feed dogs will help with easing. But if you're very careful and you know what you're doing, you can do it the other way around. So that's just a quick tip. Now to combine the side front and the center front where that pocket was just put on. Now I wanted to show you how I press the pocket up. You want to make sure everything's nice and smooth and flat. So I am just showing you now how I press it and get this very crisp edge. After that, I sew down the pocket facing. It's not mentioned in the instructions, but I do not want this flipping outside of the pocket once it's being worn. I highly doubt that I'll be using this pocket to store anything at all. It's very shallow and decorative, but just in case, I go ahead and do some whip stitches. Now over to the machine to sew down the other side front and center front, and be very careful to avoid sewing the pocket flap down. You can use a pin to kind of pin it out of the way or be very careful and feel for that flap. Now I am stay stitching the neckline and the armholes. This is a step that should be done first and foremost as soon as you're done cutting, but don't do as I would do what I say, because that is the right way to do things. This fabric was quite stiff enough that I knew it wasn't going to stretch, but just to be safe, always do that first. The front of the jerkin is pretty much done, so now it's time to move on to the back, and it's pretty much assembled the exact same way minus the pockets. So I am starting, of course, with the darts, and I am sewing that into all of the pieces. The back of the garment also has some darts, and I am going to do some fitting after this, so I'm really excited to show you how I get that done and how helpful my professional dress form has been for this process. Once all of the darts are put into the back pieces, I am sewing up all of the side seams like I did before. This is a really quick process. This project was really quick in general, especially for the results that you get. I would highly recommend it if you can find the pattern at all. It's definitely worth purchasing. To finish the raw edges on this project, I decided to use my pinking shears. These are my vintage pinking shears that I've talked about in past videos. I was able to use some aluminum foil to kind of sharpen them. So if the fabric is heavier, they work really well. And so I used them for this project because the fabric itself didn't fray, and I figured it would be overkill to serge them. And also I wanted to leave enough space just in case I wanted to let it out or take it in the future, because I want to be able to wear this as much as possible. So now I am sewing the facing for the neck, and I am just hemming the edge before I attach it. Okay, so I am having to ease the main bodice, top, whatever, to fit around the facing. So I put the bigger side down so the feed dogs can help with easing the fabric. So what I was so horribly trying to describe was I was wanting to put the facing on the top of the jerkin, and that I was making sure that the bigger side of the jerkin was touching the feed dogs. And now I am clipping the corner of the facing so that way I can flip it over and do a understitch. Make sure that you trim all of your seam allowance before doing this so it stays nice and smooth. Understitching is necessary so that way this facing does not rise forward and you can see it from the other side. It is time to start working on the armholes. This, of course, will be put together in the same fashion as the neckline. So I have a facing, which I am sewing on, and then I am going to trim the facing, turn it over, and understitch the armhole so that way it does not flip forward when worn. The jerkin is nearly complete after this step, and though this video is quite sped up, it is something you can do in a day or a couple of hours. I was making mine for a special occasion, so speed was very important since I started last minute. So I want to quickly show you how I decided to use my dress form to fit this piece. I knew there was going to be some extra ease because it is supposed to be worn over a blouse, but my fabric has a little bit of stretch to it, just a tiny bit of stretch to it. So I didn't want it to be super big and uncomfortable on me. Here is where I took some ease out of the side seam under the arm, and I also took some out of the back dart because I had to avoid the front since there is a pocket going down the side. Once I was comfortable with the fit, I did try it on and it worked perfectly for me. So then I used some chalk to mark where the pins were, and then I'm going to follow that line on the sewing machine, making sure that I start my initial stitch where the original stitch was, so there's no bubble. So I'm starting at 5/8 and then I'm working my way down the chalk line that I marked, so there is no bubble when you flip it around. After you sew in all of your new seam lines, you're going to want to go in and seam rip all of the original 5/8 seam allowances. That will allow you to press those seams open really nicely, and then I would trim the fabric down just a tiny bit around the waist so that way you can do a clip and it lays very smoothly, because the definition between the hip and the waist are different and it's a rounded edge. It is time to hem the lower edge of the jerkin, so I'm using some very thin ribbon to sew on the raw edge, and then I'm going to sew an invisible or blind stitch to hem the bottom so you don't see it on the other side. And these are the buttons that I have. They're two-toned. I really love these. They're super cute. I might end up wearing a white blouse under this just because I don't know if I'll have time to make the blouse that the pattern came with. So it'll definitely match with this. It is time to work on the skirt, and just like the jerkin, I am marking everything with some tailor's chalk. I am using my yardstick to make the very long marking for the vent in the back. I ran out of fabric for this, so I did have to piece some of my fabric to make the vent in the center back, but it all worked out, at least I think so. So now I'm sewing in the darts, and this is a really simple straight skirt. It's not quite as fitted as a pencil skirt, but it definitely is, it's just a very straight skirt. And I really like this fabric for this because it holds its shape without it depending on my body to give it shape. The vent should have been cut on the fold, but as you can see, there is a stitching line on the center back of my vent. So now I'm attaching it to my skirt, and I am pinking the edges because the very back I did leave pinked, but then on all of the side seams, I did my French seam because I'm fairly confident that this skirt would fit the way that it does for quite some time. It's not a super fitted skirt. Because the skirt was so simple, I got this project done very quick. I think I got this entire skirt done in a couple of hours. So between the two pieces, I got the entire outfit completed in a day. This is the first time that I've ever done an event like this where I sewed like a patch onto it, with the exception of the one time I made a pleated vent on my own accord. But yeah, it was really cool to see something that I'm used to doing done a different way. Because we are winding down, I want to thank you guys so much for sticking with me and watching this video. If you've made it this far, I truly appreciate it. Leave me a comment below. We have reached over 100,000 subscribers, so I think maybe I can do another Q&A because the first one I made was a very long time ago. So leave me any questions you'd want to know about my sewing or my home decor or anything like that. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, follow me on Instagram at SewRena_. If you would like to support this channel further, you can leave me a virtual tip on Ko-fi. The link will of course be in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this project, and this is what it looks like. I feel like it's giving vintage Barbie flight attendant or Barbie takes Paris. The jerkin does pull over your head since the zip is located underneath the arm, so I installed a lap zipper upside down. I didn't use a special zipper for this or a separating zipper. It's just the zipper installed upside down before I put the hem on it, as you can see here. Well, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day or evening whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.